Hi all, welcome to what promises to be a very exciting panel today at the Get WISER Summit. We are a group of 5 women social entrepreneurs. That might sound formidable, but we are a lot of fun too. Welcome to you all from Catalyst 2030. Catalyst 2030 is a global movement of social entrepreneurs and social innovators from all sectors who share the common goal of creating innovative, people-centered approaches to attain the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. We are more than 800 members, including organizations, individuals, covering all the 17 SDGs, and working with people in 190 countries and touching 2 billion lives. If you have a collaborative approach towards the SDGs and the systems change, we invite you to be a part of this big. Yeah. Also, this evening we have our first award ceremony where Catalyst 2030 members are recognizing the allies and the partners without whom our journey would not have been complete. Please join that as well. And as part of the awards community, I deeply ask you to join. Thank you. When Deepa invited me to moderate this panel, I was reminded of my interview with Diana Wells, then head of venture at Ashoka, 20 years ago. And I was a person applying for a job here. When she had asked me why I wanted to join Ashoka, I had said I wanted to bring on more women to the fellowship. As I started preparing for this panel, 2 things struck me. That there's still a disproportionate number of women social entrepreneurs in the world. Women Ashoka Fellows only account for 38% of their 3,500 strong fellowship. Well, it's an improvement, a huge improvement. Why should we be happy with 38 when we can actually get to 50, right? Or more. I was also struck by how little research was there on leaders of nonprofits and women social entrepreneurs, and how most of the research that existed was totally focused on the global north. There were research on gender pay gap in the nonprofit sector, on leadership, on representation of women of color in the sector. There's a lot of post-COVID data on women entrepreneurs too, but all US-centered. This one Ashoka report really stood out in covering people across the globe. This, to my mind, just adds to the gamut of inequalities recently brought home to us due to COVID, faced by women and girls world over. From increasing domestic violence, to extra burden of care work, to girls dropping out of school, and women losing jobs because they were anyway involved in temporary or informal work more than men. This is a matter of worry. Women in social entrepreneurship often disrupt many of these patterns of gender inequality. Women social entrepreneurs have also shown us how scaling deep actually works. Overhauling unfair and unjust systems, sparking collaborative social movements, and reshaping dominant expectations, norms, and stigmas. Ashoka's 2018 Global Impact Study found that female fellows were also found to be more collaborative, working closely with other citizen sector organizations, supporting other women and young people around them, and empowering their own teams. They also reflected a higher tendency to impact behaviors and mindsets. In fact, 76% of the female fellows reported influencing societal attitudes and cultural norms as core to their strategy, compared to a much lower percentage of the male fellows. The World Bank report on women entrepreneurs and how they are different highlights how, through such work and leadership styles, female social entrepreneurs can add substantially to economic growth, poverty reduction, and just showing the world that another kind of leadership is possible. Some of the researches available on Africa has that the most common challenges shared by women social entrepreneurs are that their sector is heavily dominated by men. Echoing Green's State of Social Entrepreneurship 2020 report, among US social entrepreneurs who apply to their fellowship says, fundraising is gendered too, and male applicants to Echoing Green fellowships can raise more funds than female applicants overall and on average. This status quo can actually affect the way young girls grow up, building an atmosphere that praises quantitative forms of success, surrounded by media spotlights that often elevate male dominated narratives of entrepreneurial leadership. The lack of visibility for women in leadership roles and of their deeply impactful initiatives contributes to a culture where young girls are not encouraged to develop entrepreneurial skills or pursue leadership positions in social entrepreneurship or otherwise. And that is one of the reasons why we need to focus on leadership of women in the sector. Not because of the wonderful things they have already done, and we know that there are a whole lot, but because little girls growing up today need to know what is possible for them, what is possible by them as they navigate a world that has regressed somewhat during the last 1 year. And so we have with us today four fabulous women who can be role models for men, women, everybody. They can be inspiration and mentors for many of us. They're Mukti Bosco working in India with rural women, building community culture and practices of preventive health care. They're Dr. Rana Dayani, fostering a love of reading in young children beyond academics in the Arab world. Wamayu Wahinda, fostering entrepreneurship among youth in Kenya, most of them women. And Ashraf Patel, pioneering leadership of social action and investment in youth in India for over 2.5 decades. Welcome all. To start off, my question to you all is that you all have done tremendous work and achieved remarkable things. We would love to hear a little bit about your personal journeys as women leaders and change makers, and what cultural and social norms did you have to navigate. We'll begin with Rana here, and then we will go to Mukti, and then Bobyu, and then Ashraf. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Sohini, for the introduction and for setting the stage and the background for this panel. And I welcome all our attendees and audience all over the Arab world and globally. We're here to learn as much as you are, so we encourage you to ask questions and to contact us now and even later. But personally, I'm a professor of molecular biology. That's my day job. I do research on genetics and epigenetics of trauma in Jordan. However, at the same time, because of the skills and knowledge and experience I have, I felt a feeling of responsibility to employ those skills to solve the challenges around me in my own community, outside my lab, outside my classroom. And that's that spirit of responsibility, which stems from my values and my religion as a Muslim, that everyone is a guardian, right? Also, like Gandhi said, be the change maker. So when I realized that children don't read for fun, although they read for education, for religious purposes, I thought, this is important because that's how you expand your imagination. That's how you have vocabulary to express yourself. That's how you learn about other people, to empathize. But more importantly, that's how a child has the confidence to become the hero that they read about. So the child herself becomes the change maker in her community and the driver. And so this led me, using my scientific thinking of solving problems, to ask why they don't read for fun. And I found out it's because they don't love reading for fun. And that led me to that it's about the parents reading aloud to the children. And if I can't convince every parent to read aloud or pass a law, because even if they do, they may not necessarily follow the law, I thought I have to do something myself. And that's how I started. I gathered children and started reading aloud to them in my local neighborhood. And now that went from an idea of a feeling of responsibility to now a nonprofit organization in 61 countries. And I think this is very important to highlight, that sometimes a lot of ideas, a lot of women and men, and now that we're talking about women, have a lot of ideas that are really on point to solve the challenges in their community. And it's about creating that confidence and that feeling that I have to do it. And they do it. The thing is, they're invisible, because they remain ideas and little things in their own neighborhoods. So we need to acknowledge that they exist and support them in different ways. And one of them is providing funding for individuals, not necessarily organizations. So that's one of because they're already doing it, and they don't realize in themselves that they are social entrepreneurs. And we've seen this because We Love Reading is not just about the children. It's about the adults and youth who we train to read aloud to the children. These women find their voices, literally by reading aloud, but figuratively by becoming leaders in their own community, realizing if I can read aloud to kids and solve that problem, and all the community looks at me as a savior or a change maker, what else can I solve? So they become social entrepreneurs in their own right, solving other problems like environment, like doing a compost program, or finding a better job, or starting a business. And so We Love Reading became not just about the children, but adults, and changing the mindset of the whole community to a mindset of I can, and not to wait as victims to be saved by somebody else.
Thank you so much for that. Mukti, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Sohini. Thank you, Ashoka, that we are part of this awesome panel. And Rana, I'm able to understand and see from where you're coming, and how everyone is a change maker. And that is what our journey with the 5,000 women and 5,000 villages that we have trained this far to become community health entrepreneurs has taught us, that we just need to show them just one step of the journey, and they walk the path. And there is so much more to learn from them for us than they learning from us. So just the first step of giving them the agency, showing that they can be empowered enough, and they have the skill sets to be able to change within themselves and bring about change within their families, goes a long way to show the change that they can create in the community. And in health, especially in health, because world over, whether it is the first world countries or the last world countries, women are the custodians of health, unless, of course, money is spent to buy insurance or go to a corporate hospital. But generally, women are the custodians of health. They decide what is bought, they decide what is cooked, they decide how clean the house should be and how everything has to be done. And when they realize, actually, that is empowering. Empowering because you're making the smaller decisions and bringing about change in nutrition, bringing about change in the eating behaviors and living behaviors. Then the confidence slowly arises, and they are able to showcase those to the rest of the community and be able to go out of their homes and teach the others. And that has been our biggest learning, because it is the women who bring about the change in the communities. We have trained men and women to be community health entrepreneurs. And what we found very early on our journey was women are able to bring about the micro changes, which adds up to a macro change. Whereas men traditionally like to go and make the macro change. The macro change may not happen without the micro changes that we need to make at our household level. And so till date, we have trained about 5,000 women in India and about 300 women in Indonesia, and we reached about 6.5 million population. And now we are looking at empowering these women to be able to hold the systems also accountable, to be able to provide the determinants of health to their own community. Over to you, Sohini.
And no wonder that 85% of global healthcare workers are female, right? There's
right.
Yeah.
I mean, all the frontline health workers, you see them most of the time. It is the women.
Thank you, Mukti. Over to Kenya now, and to Vamayu.
Thank you so much. I was elected as an Ashoka Fellow in 2010 in recognition of the work that I was doing in supporting young people to be entrepreneurs and to build enterprises that would sustain them and their families. And when I was elected, I first of all didn't understand what I was being recognized for, because I was busy doing what I'm good at and what I love to do. So I remember at the induction meeting, And I was asked to give my story. Actually, I broke down and cried. I was like, I mean, really? This is what I'm being recognized for? What I love to do on a daily basis? It was surprising. And I realized that that's how many women are, not just me. We juggle so much. We juggle the work with our families. I'm married with 3 children. I take care of my family, my parents, aging parents. I take care of them. I am a CEO and therefore taking care of a team of employees that look up to me. I sit on several boards, government and civil society and private sector. I mean, I'm a community leader. I mean, I do many things. But I've realized that one of the reasons why I'm effective as a woman is because I have learned to delegate. I delegate everything that I can delegate. I mean, it's not traditional by any standards. I don't cook because I can delegate. I don't go to the supermarket. I can delegate. I don't even drive because I don't need to drive. I can sit at the back and work as someone drives me. I mean, there's a lot that I delegate, and it's not traditional by any chance. So I choose to do what is important. Therefore, I am intentional about what I do. So I join the boards that I intentionally take up roles in boards that I feel add value to the work that I'm doing, and even to the specifically work on youth and women. I intentionally talk to my family at the right time and ensure that I engage them and I have a relationship with my children. So I intentionally rest. I mean, it's so important, even as I do everything else, that I rest and even reflect. I mean, so all those are the things that I do intentionally. And I don't give apologies about being intentional about these things, because that's the only way I can be effective. I find that because I'm intentional, I can be effective. I can have a team that works well because I coach them. I spend time to ensure that they understand their work and that they can be effective. So by doing so, I don't stretch myself thin, and then we are all effective as a team. So I am therefore happy doing the work that I do as a woman. And even if it's different, I have learned not to be apologetic about doing things a bit differently from what is expected traditionally. One of the, just to give an example, I don't encourage visit and explained visitors. In our culture, people walk into your house and expect that you're available to entertain them. I don't do that. I don't attend weddings because everybody expects that you should be at a wedding. I sometimes can't, because then I don't want to do what is not working for me and pulling my resources so thinly that I'm not effective. In any case, for the 10 years that I've been working with at the Youth Banner and supporting young people, I have realized that there is a lot that needs to be done, and it's difficult to do it alone. Not what I mean alone, not necessarily alone as a woman, but alone as an organization that is, working almost in a silo, because a lot of people are not used to working in teams. There is this, should I say, a tradition of building something and running with it on your own. But that's not sustainable, and it's not where we need to be going to be able to be more effective. So I decided to step aside and stop being the CEO of this organization that I founded. And as I did that, I said, let me go back to school. I'm now in running. I'm doing my doctoral studies, and I thought, let me just step back, think through, reflect. And it's interesting that even as I was thinking about what research to do, I realized I need to research the social entrepreneurs, my people, and look at why are we not working together. What is the challenges? What are the skills that we need to learn to be able to be more effective as we collaborate? And I'm happy to say that the research I've been doing in the last 3 years, researching Ashoka Fellows in 19 countries in Africa, has actually confirmed that as social entrepreneurs, we love to work together. We've got great ideas, we've got great teams, but we're not, should I say, maybe we are not yet there. We're still at it, but we have not arrived. And we need to be more intentional about how we work, so that we ensure that we are deep in our approach of how we make the systems change. So I'm hoping that at some point I'll be able to share those learnings from that research. But in conclusion, I would like to say that we have, as women, we must be intentional, and we must not apologize for working in an intentional manner. Thank you.
I was just meeting with my team in a state in India called Uttar Pradesh. It's a Uttar Pradesh team, is about 45 of them. And our state head in Uttar Pradesh told me today in front of everybody that I am actually aspiring to take up your position one day. I'm like, oh, nobody wants to do my job. Here I found somebody who wants to do my job, and I was so ecstatic. And then one of her junior, trainers said, and Pratidi, I want to actually aspire to be you one day. And so it was such a wonderful feeling to see how even women as leaders can actually pass that aspiration on, so that there are other people who want to kind of take up the work that you're doing at some point of time. And you're like, all right, I'm not alone in this. There are many other people who want to do the same thankless job day in and day out. So it's wonderful to see how having women in position of leadership actually gives other people a lot of ideas of what leadership could be. So with that, Ashraf, over to you.
Thanks so much, Shoini, and lovely to hear everyone. And as the last speaker, Vamuyu, so maybe we both work on youth, so I was taking lots of tips from you along the way. Okay, so a little bit about me, since Shoini asked about a little bit personal stuff, so I'll just take it from there. I think I grew up in an interesting family. My father was a Muslim, and my mother is a Jain. She's a Hindu. And from that whole space, we were raised as children, I think also of great privilege. I mean, one must recognize I also grew up with a lot of privileges. So was never asked to follow anything or to, was allowed in a way, many ways to be free. And I think that is one really important cultural space that many women don't have in the households. And that, I think, gave me a lift up. But going to school, you are confronted. You are confronted with your identities, not in your own safe spaces, but in the public space many times. And I think my first understanding of my identity as a woman and as a Muslim actually sort of settled when I was really young in school. I can't remember second or fourth standard. When there was a question asked about, there was a discussion on Islam, and some question I was asked to get up and answer something. And I didn't know the answer. And I felt like, you know how it is when you're young, you really feel like, oh, you've got to know the answer. And then of course, some people laughed and all. It felt really weird. And then I asked the teacher, listen, why did you ask me the question? You could have asked everybody. She said, but you're a Muslim. So then I asked her, how do you know that I'm a Muslim? And then she said, well, your name is Ashraf and your father is a Muslim. I said, what about my mom? Do you know that my mom's not a Muslim? And it didn't matter to me either. I have a respect for all religions. It didn't matter. But it mattered to me at that time to become aware, oh, wow, the woman's identity name is like zero. Anyway, life went on. So these are little experiences that stay with you and you begin to question. And my second, I think, and I'll just take 2-3 incidences. A second confrontation was actually, I think, in not confrontation, college. It's not overcoming cultural barriers, but again, finding yourself. I think making decisions about who your partnership is, relationships is also an expression and an assertion where possible of self and togetherness. And I think that for me was a good moment to express my identity and freedom, having the choice of what I want to do, study, be. These are explaining, I'm trying to share as privileges that I have, but it makes you aware what are the privileges people don't have. And that I think is so important to relate it to women entrepreneurship. And I'll come to that later. At my workplace, a very small example I want to share is that when I was in my first job, I was like lowest in the rung. I had done my management. And when you do your management, you think you've arrived, you don't have to worry about your career. You have money, you have whatever. And you will, life is good. I was confronted with a situation. I was in human resource development, and my CEO of this organization put out an ad in the newspaper, wanted only men for this position. The position was accounts assistant. And normally the CEO has to go through an HR department. He had to go through us to put out the ad, but this ad was put out without consultation. And the day in the morning, I read this paper and it just like totally churned me up. I said, how can someone do this? And this is the cultural barrier that we are faced in our society. I think it didn't affect me, but it affects hundreds of women. It affected me in other ways. We won't go into that. But I think this was the time when I found my voice. And I just walked into the seat, and my boss didn't want to do anything. He said, let it be, and all that. Then I said, I was, I think, 23 something. And I said, like, I can't work in an organization which is putting this out, and I'm the HR person. So I went in and I just said, sir, this is not on. And we had a big argument, and the gentleman didn't want to listen. And then I just chucked in my papers, just didn't think. I said, okay, you keep your job, I'm going. Went home, cried and cried and cried, because like, what the hell, like, you just quit a really good fun job that you were enjoying. So anyway, then of course life moves on and you learn, and in hindsight there are ways to, I think there are ways to navigate, and you don't have those skills, then you just react. And that is also part of, I think, building entrepreneurship. You have to take the choice, take the decisions, take the risk, and learn from the mistakes. That was a learning mistake, how to navigate a problem. But it was a good mistake, I think, that I did, and a good decision to show. Anyway, so this is some little things that I think have shaped my thinking, things around you, and how you talk and rise up to an occasion. This third role about me, not overcoming culture barrier, just accepting, I think, is caregiver, the role of a caregiver. When my dad was very unwell for many years, a lot of the caregiving roles do land up on women. We know that. And I think these are things we just have to figure. How do we share? And I was lucky. I have a partner who's really sharing. We just shared everything. So I had a support. I just want to come back. So we started Prava many years ago, 20 years ago. We set up this organization, which was a response to a communal conflict in the country. There was polarization, as is throughout the world today. And we just felt we cannot continue in our jobs and we need to do something. And I think that's where my social entrepreneurship journey started, where I also became an Ashoka Fellow. And I think it was in that our response to social issues was to set up and work on youth leadership, because we felt that at an early age, and I think it is connected to social entrepreneurship, at an early age, if young people are able to find the space for freedom, love, ownership, what should I say, belonging, and also social hope. If there are these 5 experiences, our feeling was that if, as young people, we've had experienced these spaces which give us this, whether it's in our families, whether it's in our schools, then they will have a comfort with who they are as people, and each one needs to be comfortable with themselves, and they will be able to break the social norms to change the world. This to me is the seed of social entrepreneurship, and that's what we are doing as Prava. Prava is the organization that I founded, and I just want to resonate with some of the experience. I don't know, it's not about being a woman, but it's about wanting to work in a collective. So the other piece I want to share, the desire to know that this will not happen alone. I don't want to work alone. I cannot, and there is nothing that we can do alone. To build this social fabric, it is important. So building collectives. And as part of this collective, we are also not looking at young people without their intersectionalities and diversities. So young people, which means also young women, young people across all genders and diversities. And there an important space is to build their decision-making power, their entrepreneurial skills by doing social fellowships. I mean, so consciously we have worked against all the things that I talked about that I faced or I saw around me, on gender-based violence, on decision-making, on having not only seed capital, but or capacity to be a social entrepreneur as a woman, but also to have a fearlessness, to be able to do what anybody and everybody tells you you can't do. So I think these are things that are really important. And that's what I want to talk about. Last point about being, even today, this thing of self-doubt. Okay, Vamu, you referred to it. And I was joking in one of these meetings the other day with all of you, was that even today when people ask me to come on boards, and even today I can say it I say, okay, am I being called because I'm this woman representative? Am I being called because I'm half Muslim? So sometimes you don't acknowledge your own capacities and competencies, and that is there. That's part of life. I'll stop.
Fantastic, and I work with about 100,000 adolescents, both boys and girls, on gender equality, and we find that when we talk about gender and rights to young people, the first thing is, of course, self-transformation. But then, they think not just for themselves, but for their families, their societies, their communities. And we find more and more young people, both boys and girls, taking fabulous action that can actually really change, patriarchal norms in societies completely through that just one action. And so I learn every day from them. So thank you, Ashraf, for talking about young people and the power that they bring. Just want to bring us back to the question of women. I was talking to a group of women entrepreneurs, grassroots entrepreneurs, and one of them said in Hindi that whenever we want to start something as women, a small enterprise or something, people tell us छोटा से शुरू करो फिर धीरे धीरे बड़ा हो जाएगा, which means you start small and then it will slowly grow big. Why do I, as a woman, have to start small? Do you see something like this? Are there other cultural, social barriers that you, as women entrepreneurs, see in your lives? And maybe we can start with Mukti.
Across the spectrum, I think that is one of the things that even personally I have heard: start small and it may grow. When I started Healing Fields, the one thing that everybody told my husband is, keep her busy. She needs to do something. So yes, she wants to do some social work, let her do it so that she doesn't trouble you. And it was like, and he in turn was trying to tell me, you need to get out of the house and do something. You can't just sit around. Go and do. There's so much of, you have so much capability. And it was these two diametrically opposite messaging that comes in. And at one level, I have been extremely lucky to have had a supportive family where they saw the innate skill and the passion that I had. But even till today, 22 years down the line of doing the work that I've been doing, I still have a lot of people in the around who say, oh, you do social work. I mean, there's nothing wrong in social work, but it's just that you're keeping yourself happy. And it is like, I mean, in my daughter's, she was doing an NIOS program, and as part of her social studies, one of the things was the women's job, a textbook. A woman's job is non-economical. That's exactly what was written. I've taken a screenshot. And the women's job is to do the work in the house, to make sure the house is clean, make sure this is blah, blah, blah. And her work is non-economical. The man's job is economical. So she came and asked her father, saying, Dad, so only you are working, you are bringing in the money. So what does mom do? She's working here, she's working out. Does she bring in the money? So it became a big joke in the family that the women are non-economical. And so that is how the gender divide starts very early, at least here in India. And it is getting a little deeper and worse now. But this is something that is a major concern. It should be a major concern for all of us across the world to be able to provide the freedom to be able to give support to the girls in our lives and to the women in our lives to be able to go out and do whatever they want. Just 2 days ago, I was talking to a group of women in Bihar and UP, Uttar Pradesh, which are the poorest states of the country. These are the women whom we have trained as community health entrepreneurs. We are building, as part of the Ashoka Aspire Fellowship, we are trying to build a societal platform. And as part of that, we were having a focus group discussion to understand the persona of the women in the village. What is she doing? And in terms of entitlements. And one thing that we found was when we asked the women, what is it that she does? So they started off saying, okay, she does the work in the house, cooks, blah, 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 blah. And as well as when it comes to entitlements, that the public distribution system, she's the one who's going to go and buy it. She's the one who's going to the hospital when somebody is ill. She is the one who's going to the school. At last, one of our program staff, a program manager, a male, he said, how about leaving at least one job for our men to do? Because you seem to be saying that everything the women do and men do nothing at all. But when we started looking deeper into that, what were the jobs that the women were doing? Went back to my daughter's 10th standard book, which said it was non-economical because she was dependent on somebody else for the money to buy things. So financial independence is, I believe, one of the first or half a step. And therefore, as mothers, I'm stepping out being a social entrepreneur, as mothers, as sisters, as mothers-in-law, very important, as sisters-in-law, especially in our culture, we need to ensure that we are providing the support to the women in our own lives to be able to give them the confidence to go out, earn their living, to go out and be confident. And that is why our community health entrepreneurs that we are training today, very, very consciously we took a decision that we will only train women as a community health entrepreneur because she needs to get out. She needs to feel her agency. She needs to break some of the cultural barriers. And I'm sure all of you agree, coming from countries like India, Southeast Asia, and Africa, there are a lot of cultural barriers we women have to break through.
Yeah, and McKinsey's part of parity report says that women, if there is gender equality in economics, in economical contributions, women can actually add $25 trillion to the world's GDP. You know, I don't know how many zeros or how much is that, but it's a lot. It's a lot, right? So Rana, we're going to go back to you to talk a little bit about the cultural barriers that you have seen, you know, even if you have not faced it yourself, but other women facing in your country.
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, I want to discuss 2 points. And the first one is a follow-up to Mukti's participation, which is I want to challenge quo. So I'm going to be the disruptor here, right? So yes, women should have their own independence, but I want to challenge how we define success. In the textbook definition that you just said, it's all about economy, it's all about money, which is a capitalistic kind of approach that I only have value because of money I earn. However, as you just mentioned, the woman is doing everything else. So rather than saying, I want to use the role model of a man earning as the exemplar that I want to aspire to, I want to challenge that. I want to say, let's change the whole value-based system and say the work that I do has value. As I bring up my children, that should have a monetary value on it, and that should be acknowledged if we are to really advance forward freedom, removing of oppression, and acknowledging that the most important job for any human being globally, whether it's man or woman, is bringing up a healthy generation of children, and not, you know, throwing them to somebody else so that we can earn. And this is for both men and women. I'm saying both should be involved in their family. But my point is, let's disrupt the system instead of following to imitate and try to fix it by us becoming more like a man and saying we only have value. And I think this is very clear starkly when we see how Facebook and Apple in 2014 offered women employees to freeze their eggs until they're over 40. And this is not right? It's about, and this is biology, this is evolution. It has nothing to do with social or cultural. So that's my first point. So we need to challenge that status quo. And as you said, Mukti, have the freedom to pursue our passion, whatever it is. I want to be a CEO, and that's okay. And I don't want to be a CEO, and that's okay as well. And I'm a woman, or I could be a man for either job, and that's okay as well. So that's the proposition I put, and that's I write about it in my book that I put in the chat, 5 Scarves. It says doing the impossible. If we can reverse cell fate as stem cell technology, why can't we redefine success in a way that gives this freedom to choose? My second point is also very important, since we are all discussing in this panel, and many of the panels in this conference are women coming from the global south. And the challenge I see is, because most of us are coming from developing countries, that a lot of the solutions and the funding and the international NGOs are coming from the global, that we want to save these people, we want to help them. And this is very impeding because it's from the people themselves who are experiencing these challenges, and it puts that victim attitude of I'm waiting for somebody to come in. And therefore, nothing is sustainable. The people don't have that ownership. And so what I ask for is people-driven solutions, to trust the people themselves in their communities to come up with their own solutions. And then in that way, those solutions would be sustainable on the long run and have proper impact. And eventually that problem will disappear, others will come up. And so I think that's a very important point that we need to bring out to help gain confidence. And lastly, I want to talk about role models. I mean, we need to write our stories, right? And I encourage every person here, especially the women, to write their stories, to share them, because the young generation, both men and women, need to hear the story like them, who've walked the same walk, and to realize that we all are change makers. We can all be successful within the goals that we set for ourselves. It doesn't have to be a big splash. A big show. Again, that's something where we've inherited either from the patriarchal system, that you're only successful if the whole world knows about you. But I want to tell every woman that she can be very happy and successful if she sets her own goals and nobody has to know, to celebrate her own self and be proud and happy and confident and dream.
Thanks. We don't have much time, but I'm going to just go around the room and I'll start with Wamyu. Is that, imagine you're speaking to a room full of young social entrepreneurs who want to be like you one day. What is that one sentence that you'd leave them with?
Yes, I think the important thing is to appreciate yourself. I find that social entrepreneurs, we don't acknowledge who we are. We are not proud of what we do, and we need to wake up in the morning and say, yes, I'm doing something. And like Ran has said, it doesn't have to be like the largest thing in the whole universe. Whatever it is that I'm doing as an entrepreneur, it's important, and I should be proud of it. And I should every day wake up and be proud of the work that I've managed to do that day, and wake up to the next day and do even better.
Thank you. Ashraf? You are muted, Ashraf.
I would say focus on love, loving yourself and others, learning, keep learning, like you said, Shoini. And then maybe 3 things I'll just add: a seat at every table where decisions that concern you are be taking and concern others, a space to make mistakes and to fail, to reflect, and to ask questions without fear of retribution.
Mukti?
I would say follow your dream, follow your passion, and go out in confidence, because there are enough naysayers out there. But when you are convinced and go follow your dream and passion with conviction, and like Ashraf said, be at the table when decisions are made for you. you make your own decisions. And that is extremely important.
And Rana, we'll close with you.
I'm just going to say, from a biologist's point of view, every human being is unique with their DNA. Nobody ever existed like you or will ever exist. So have that confidence, be the change maker, be the butterfly, one place of the world, moving the wind a little bit, having an impact in time and space beyond what you can imagine.
Thank you. And thank you so much. You know, a friend of mine once said, yeah, 21st century is going to be ruled by women. I said, like, we already do, right? We already rule the world. Thank you very much, everyone. This was and I think we could have gone on for another 2 hours. So I would like to, thank the MENA chapter of Ashoka, because the event is organized by Ashoka Arab World. And we currently have, about 10 local chapters of Catalyst 2030. And so please be, if you're not already a part of it, please be a part of it. And especially the MENA chapter of, C2030 with Rana there, it looks like it's a fabulous place to belong to. Thank you so much, everyone, all those who are listening and all those who are participating. And I'm switching off from Lucknow. Bye, everyone.